We stopped by this house one time before, and sometimes it is just funny to look at these joke listings because that's exactly what this place is. This house has been on the market for sale for 586 days, okay? And they're asking $3.7 million, and the rental price they're asking is $40,000, okay, for rent. 114 days on the rental market. So nothing's happening here, nothing's moving. Going on the 2-year mark for trying to sell the house, which is pretty insane if you think about it. But hey, we're back in Miami, so we're gonna see a lot more insane stuff from now on. We're not in the more reasonable areas of Florida anymore. By the way, before we go further into the video, a lot of you have been asking me lately to tell people to subscribe to the channel and like the video earlier in the video, which usually I never do either one of those things, but please subscribe. Please like the video. It helps the channel, and I really appreciate all of your support because you guys actually care about it more than I do in terms of making sure people do it. So thanks for doing that. And actually one of the main reasons right now, guys, to hit the subscribe button is because so many of you have been writing me saying that you're getting faked out and scammed by the fake profiles that look like it's me, but of course it's not. And the thing is, once my YouTube channel gets to 100,000 subscribers, YouTube will then verify my channel, and I'll get this check mark next to my name, and you'll know for sure you're communicating with me on YouTube. But that's gonna be the only way to know for sure. But one thing that you can do as a precautionary until then, I never tell anybody in the comments to Telegram me or WhatsApp me, text me, call this number, anything like that you guys see, report it. It's a scam. It's not me, okay? Unless I directly call out in the video, you hear me telling you to do something, it's fake, all right? So heads up on that. But help me get to 100K subscribers, and it will help us eliminate some of these scammers a little bit more and make it easier for you to differentiate whether it's really me or not. We're almost there. We recently just passed 80K, so we're on our way there. Now, one thing we have been talking about a lot is the credit crunch, guys. And it has just got harder for people to get a loan. And this is not me just saying that. This is actually a report that came out this week from the Federal Reserve. So this report that I'm referring to is the Senior Loan Officer Survey, which they ask banks. And basically what they ask them is if they have tightened their lending standards at all recently or not. And tightening lending standards can mean anything like demanding that you have a higher credit score or requiring more collateral when signing for a loan. Both of those things together definitely make it harder to get any type of loan, whether it's commercial, residential, doesn't matter. But about 46% of the banks that were surveyed recently said that they have recently raised their standards for business loans for both commercial and industrial loans. But it turns out that in the previous quarter, before we had all the bank failures, already 45% of the banks were already tightening their lending standards. And I'm not surprised to hear this because I actually covered this a few months back when I first read that more banks were going to be tightening credit because the economy wasn't looking so good. And one way we can track the progress on this is about a year ago, more banks were easing credit standards and giving out loans more freely than they are today, just 1 year later, when about half of the banks are tightening their lending standards. And here's another data point to keep an eye on as they keep doing this Fed survey, that in the 2008 financial crisis, the amount of banks that tightened credit back then were 80%, guys. So we're a little more than halfway there. This survey also asks about the future plan of banks, and many of them answered saying that they plan to further tighten their lending standards later into the year. So what this is going to do is it's going to drastically reduce the amount of credit and debt available to companies and to households, and this can easily push our economy into the official recession, guys, because once that starts happening, the Fed and the government will no longer be able to deny the fact that the recession is actually here. They will have to just get on board with it and say, yes, we are in a recession, even though many of us have known that we've been in a recession for a while now. Now, one thing that is 100% guaranteed, because there's not too many guarantees right now in this world, but one thing that is guaranteed is with these tighter lending standards, it's going to slow down the economy. It's going to just make it tougher for businesses, make it tougher for households. And this is going to come in the form of reduced consumer spending because of less availability of credit, particularly when it comes to buying high-ticket items that are usually financed, like houses, cars, boats, things that are very expensive that most people can't afford to pay cash for. The worst part about this is it seems like the smaller banks, the regional banks, the ones that people are pulling their money out of fear and moving it to the bigger banks, are the ones that are the most likely to pull back on their lending standards right now, because they are at the most risk of going out of business, especially since so many people are taking their deposits and moving them over to the bigger banks. How do we know this is going to affect households? Because a lot of people think this is only pertaining to businesses. Well, it says right in this Fed report, straight from the bank's mouth, guys. This is not me saying this. These are bank executives telling you right now that it's going to be harder to get a loan for things, and it's going to be harder to get a loan for auto loans, credit cards, and home equity lines of credit. Those are going to be the tougher things to get right now from banks that are pulling back on their lending standards, or they're just going to make it harder to get it, like they said earlier, requiring more collateral or requiring higher and better credit scores. It really sucks because the small banks are in the biggest trouble right now because people are scared. They're pulling their money out of the small banks, moving it to the bigger banks, okay? They have that they're up against. They're tightening up their lending standards, so they're not writing as many loans, which also means they're not making as much money in the form of interest payments on the loans that they write. And if that's not bad enough, a lot of these smaller banks hold the majority of these commercial real estate loans that are going to be coming due, and most likely there's going to be a wave of defaults where these office buildings are not going to be paid for because the price of debt is too high now compared to what it was years ago when these loans were first given out. And even as the consumer, it's like, what do? If you pull your money out of the small bank and put it into the big bank, you're just adding to the problem in terms of how quickly these smaller banks are likely to fail. And chances are the big banks give you zero to practically nothing when it comes to rewards in terms of your savings account rate or the fees that they charge you. Especially the big banks are notorious for the amount of fees that they charge. So it's not really a good deal for the consumer to be moving money into these big banks either, but people are doing it out of fear of the bank closure and having to try and get their money back through FDIC insurance, which can be a hassle. And many of you guys who watch my channel regularly saw that I was recently over in Venice, Florida, the Gulf Coast side of the state, where things are way more relaxed than here in Miami and way more affordable too. And as much as I would love to just sell my condo for double what I paid for it and get out of here and just go over there and live the more peaceful lifestyle, it is kind of a scary time to do that, because buying a house right now is probably a really bad idea. You know, I talk about that all the time here on the channel, and I'm following my own advice, guys. Like, I would love to do that. I just think it's not the right financial move right now, because even if I could pay cash for the house, right? Even if I did that, I'm still exposed to the home value dropping big time. And if it does, then, you know, I'm the one left holding the bag, and whoever owned it before me got to capture all that appreciation, and I'm the sucker. You know what I mean? Patience has never really been my thing, but I think right now it's extremely important to exercise some, because with all these problems looming, I just don't see how it would be a good idea to do something like that right now. And I'm not the only one either, guys. I read a story about a woman who was looking at buying a house. As soon as the year turned 2023, the number one goal on her to-do list for the year was to buy a house, okay? It's her and the husband. They have 3 kids, you know, so it's 5 people. That's usually the number one reason people are looking to expand and get into a bigger house. They're living in a 4-bedroom, 1-bathroom right now, so that must be an absolute nightmare. I don't even know why anyone would build a house 4-bedroom, 1-bathroom. That sounds like idiocracy to me to begin with. But anyhow, this woman is a freelance writer. She actually bought her first house right before the housing market crash back in 2008. So that must have been a really tough pill to swallow back then, and a hard lesson learned. And I could easily see why someone would not want to make that mistake over again. So it looks like the majority of home buyers out there are pretty much boycotting the housing market, whether it's out of necessity because of unaffordability or because they're just too scared to get burned. To me, either one of those are legitimate reasons not to be buying right now. I know I would pretty much throw myself in that category as well. Everyone just has to do what they think is right for them. Like I told you guys before, you probably know my story. I started as a real estate agent right at the beginning of the last housing crash. I got my license beginning of 2009, and that's when prices were really starting to take a nosedive back then. And I just saw it every day being a new agent, how many people were going into foreclosure, you know, people were losing their jobs, short selling the house because now they were underwater on their mortgage. And my gut feeling is that we're going to be facing that same situation once again sooner than later. I don't want to have any part of it, especially because I think like, all right, only own my condo for a little over a year now, and I could max out that appreciation and just, you know, take it and run. But I don't want to rent anymore because I'm tired of moving and not knowing where I'm going to live or how much the rent payment's going to be. And at the same time, I thought I was going to own this place for a long time, which I still think I will, because I'd be way more likely to just rent the place out than to sell it if I left.
This house is a relatively new listing, being listed only 29 days ago, and they're asking $2.985 million. It is a beautiful house, I'll give them that, and it's a pool house, it's on the water, they have a boat dock in the back, but $3 million, my God, who has this kind of cash, guys? And their assessed value is only $1.2 million, and they're already paying $26,000 a year in property taxes. Imagine what the new owner's going to have to pay. You can pretty much double that. They're going to be paying close to 50 grand a year in property taxes for this house, which is totally crazy.
But I'm not really too worried about capturing the equity because that comes with its consequences too, guys. When you sell the property for a massive gain, you're paying big capital gains taxes, especially when you haven't owned the place for a long time. So Uncle Sam's going to get a generous cut of that right off the bat. And the other problem is that you're going to be forced into a situation paying all-time high prices for a house in a different area and much higher interest rates if you choose to finance, and neither one of those scenarios is good if you ask me. And I would still consider the situation I have now better than getting into that. And you know, what if I change my mind on that area and I'm the person that doesn't want to hang on to the house for 10 plus years and ride out the housing market downturn, you know? Then you're kind of forced into that situation whether you like it or not if you regret your choice. So I'd rather see my property value here come down, have a lower property tax bill, which would be a blessing right now, and if I ever decide to leave, I could just rent it and turn the place into an investment property, which to me is usually the smarter real estate strategy anyhow. After all, gathering investment properties is one of the best ways to get wealthy in life. But you know who's really lucking out from all of this is the home builders. In fact, home builders are seeing stronger than expected business this spring because so many regular sellers, like in existing neighborhoods like this one, are not selling their homes. And because of that, the buyers who are desperate to buy right now are flocking to the new builds. So much so that the new home builds have made up 1/3 of all the home sales in March of 2023. And the National Association of Realtors has been keeping track of this data since 1982. And when you go all the way back to then, the historical norm for new home sales is anywhere between 10 to 20%. But in March, it was 35% of all homes sold were brand new houses. And I don't blame buyers for doing this because they're also giving the best incentives to actually buy right now on top of that. So not only is the inventory there if you want it, but also they're giving you better interest rates, they're giving you free upgrades to the home to get in, and it comes with a warranty. We're not going to get into all the downsides of buying a brand new house, but there definitely are some. You can get very shoddy workmanship and the developer just not delivering on that promised warranty to maintain the house. within that warranty period. And people doing this is basically them saying that most people don't believe that we're going to see interest rates for mortgages go back to 3 or 4% rate anytime soon. So I should buy a brand new house because this is the only way I can even get in at around a 5% rate, which is considered really good today. But as you guys can see just by hearing these things, that the FOMO is alive and well. I'm not going to buy into it. You know, I have a place to live. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. I think that there are just way too many things moving against the entire economy right now, and I just don't see the way out, guys. Is it possible that we could have a soft landing on all of this? Yeah, maybe a 0.0003% chance, but probably not a very good chance. I'd rather bet on the fact that things are going to have to correct itself. A lot of people think, oh, the Fed's going to turn the money printer back on and there's going to be more waves of eviction moratoriums and stimulus checks being put out in the event of a recession. But I don't think so, guys. And the reason I don't think so is because that would just make things so much worse than they are right now. And that's the main reason I don't think that they will do it, just because they already did it, they tried it, and it backfired tremendously. And that's my number one reason why I think they won't do it. But like I said, anything is possible. But for me, rather than counting on the government or the Fed giving out subsidies or printing free money again, I'd rather just rely on my own financial security and what I know about what I can afford to do and things like that before making any other major financial decisions from here. I would love to buy more investment property. And I've heard some of you are doing that, and there probably are areas where you can do it, but most of the deals down here in Florida just don't make sense anymore due to the high cost of insurance and taxes now, as well as the interest rates. So you really got to be buying in probably most Midwestern markets, places like that, in order to turn a profit these days. But I'd rather just wait and bet on the fact that I think prices are going to come down. And once again, I'm not the only one, because Fannie Mae's Housing Confidence Index actually just came out again, and even though it went up 5.5 points in May, even though it's on the rise a little bit, the majority of people are still agreeing with the fact that it's not a good time to buy a house. And I think all the jump in the points is probably from people seeing all these news stories about bidding wars again, and just seeing low inventory and feeling like this is never going to end and there's just no way out of this. But there is a way out of this, guys. It's called no one can afford it anymore. That's the way out of this. So who's going to be left to buy anything? More than half of all people who answered this Fannie Mae poll say that they think mortgage rates are going to go up over the next year, and only 22% think that mortgage rates will actually go down. That's one of the parts of this survey that improved, because the month before, in April, 12% of people thought that interest rates would go down, and now 22% of the people do. I think that mortgage interest rates are going to remain pretty flat for the rest of the year. I doubt it's really going to change all that much. But here's the reality. Only 23% of the people surveyed think it's a good time to buy a house right now. And only 23% also think that home prices are going to go up over the next 12 months. So you can see the majority of people out there that take these surveys are pretty much on the same page as what we talk about here on the channel. And I think just that alone is a big reflection of where things are at right now. And I just don't see an avenue for things to continue going up forever, guys. The fundamentals don't exist. Check this out. Must have demolished a house over here. Last time I walked past here, there was a house here. But one thing that was confirmed with this Fannie Mae survey is the number one reason why people are not interested in buying a house right now, or think that it's not a good time to buy a house, is because home prices are too high. So if that is the case, then you're not likely to see too many people change their mind on that until that reverses. One last thing is, this week, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed into law a bill that pretty much has sweeping changes that bans undocumented people from doing all sorts of things like driving cars, even if you have a driver's license from other states. They're banning the DMV from issuing driver's license to these people from now on. You can't have a driver's license issued to you if you're undocumented, illegal, living here in Florida. And they're also imposing tougher penalties on people who knowingly bring undocumented people to Florida, like human trafficking. They're requiring private employers to use E-Verify, a system that checks prospective workers' identity status and residency status. So they're pretty much cracking down on illegal immigration here in Florida, right as the national immigration law that was in place during the Trump administration will expire this week. They're also going to have things like hospitals are going to be required to ask patients for their residency status and collect data for the state on how much they spend providing health care to undocumented immigrants. So let me know what you guys think. You in favor of this? You're not in favor of this? Pretty sure I know what most of you are going to say, but I want to hear it anyhow. Don't forget to like the video, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Help the channel get to 100K. Help me get verified so you know you're talking to me in the comments. But if they're saying something weird, it's not me. I can guarantee you that, okay? I don't try to ever scam any of my viewers. You just got to watch out for this stuff. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you click the bell notification down below, and then YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video. And if you don't want to wait for that, check out my next one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.